Good morning, evening, or afternoon, my fellow NerdiKnights, and welcome to Classically Trained Nerds Book Devour. I'm Danny, and today we're going to be devouring Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. We're going to be reviewing chapters 5 through 9. If you missed last week's episode, I'll post it up here. You can take a look. Alright guys, welcome to episode 2. I know episode 1 was a little slow, but it was the beginning of the book, and it's usually a little bit of slow momentum going there. Alright, so chapter 5 starts us off with a pretty good momentum. Now, Clay and Gabriel are traveling now. They had their little memorial service for Clay's mom. Some feels happened there, and I feel like that's going to sneak back up on Clay later in the book, but that's a speculation for later. Now, as they're traveling and they enter a forest, they get robbed by this band of merry women who are wearing these patchwork clothing, and to be totally honest, really crappy thieves. Now, I say this partly because, one part they stole everything that they had, including the socks that Clay's wife knitted them and all the food that they had and pretty much all the coins that they had. But I say they're terrible thieves because they didn't steal Clay's shield out of honor. And I get it, thieves have honor somewhere, but really, that shield is probably worth hundreds of thousands of whatever currency they use in whatever black market they have. That would have been the first thing I stole. I saw that shield and I knew the story that goes behind it. Boom, done, mine. But no, the thieves, they knew Clay's stories and how the shield represents Clay's history and the history of the band saga that they were in, and they didn't touch it. I'm like, really? Come on. That would have set me up for life. If I was a thief and I saw that, mine, done. Either I'm going to be a terrible thief because of that, or I'm going to be an awesome thief and I'm going to be rich. Because that's the only thing I need to steal. Steal that, I'm set for life. Done. On with it. So one cool thing about the end of chapter 5 that I want to point out is some dude made them do push-ups on the road to the Contra city where they're headed in order just to give them food. They called him the sadistic farmer. I just found that kind of hilarious that they'd be walking on this road and a farmer, they'd be like, hey, can we have some food? And the farmer's like, yeah, do some push-ups. And they were hungry enough that they did some push-ups right there in the middle of the road. I don't know, I find that secretly hilarious. If they ever made this into a movie, then that would be a great cameo spot for the late Charlton Heston, if we can resurrect him or something like that. Like one of the older famous actors would be nice. Actually, I almost see Tim Allen doing something like that. Just being a sadistic farm, be like, meh, do some push-ups. Whatever. Moving on, so chapter 6, which is called The Monster Parade. This, we get a feel for what Contra is, which it kind of reminds me of Chicago. Kind of dirty, kind of grimy, but has a lot of history, and there's a lot of things going on at once, and it's a big city. But, they enter it. Clay hates it there. It's dirty. It's what they hope is mud, but it's probably human shit, to be totally honest. And they tell that Contra has no law. There is no king. There's nobody abiding, any sort of security there. It's kind of a free-for-all. So there's a lot of prostitution. There's a lot of gambling. There's a lot of things that really shouldn't be going on in a normal city. But there it is. Again, it kind of reminds me of Chicago. So the reason why it's called the Monster Parade is two bands actually just got back from the Wyld and are parading around their bounty, like what they received, all the treasures that they found. They also pushed along a bunch of goblins, which I found really interesting, and they're all beat up and they're going to put into slavery, which I don't know how I feel about that, but, I guess just to show that the people of Conthrus is, they're not nice people, and the crowd's cheering as the goblins are being beaten and pushed through the crowd, and Clay and Gabriel make notice that they the warriors that are coming, showing off their band, they aren't wearing armor that you would normally have. It's all flimsy, it's all crappy. So they're under suspect that the whole thing was a sham. They might have purchased the goblins from a slave trader instead of actually going out and capturing them. and all of this, bounty that's coming through could be all fake. So that is something that we're probably going to run into later on in the chapters when, they realize that the Wyld is either way, way harder than they think it is or way easier. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so chapters 7 and 8 are where everything gets really interesting. Now, in chapter 7, they are still in Conthras. They just got done watching the parade, and they're in Conthras for one reason, to meet this guy named Kellerek. And Kellerek is an asshole and douchebag in 3 different ways. One, he is the old manager of the band Saga and kind of helped doing the breakup that Clay and Gabriel had with the band. And he didn't facilitate it, but he was definitely involved in that situation. And the second thing is that he stole Gabriel's wife. And the third is that he is the guy that Gabriel sold his sword to when Gabriel was in trouble with some mercenaries, which I kind of have a feeling that Kellerek kind of organized that too, just to create the opportunity to buy the sword, but that's kind of a speculation right now. Now, this sword is super, super important because apparently it was the sword that the Druin, which are kind of like elves, I assume, cut through dimensions in order to get into our world, or where the world is based off into here. And the Druin were the people who created the Dominion, and the Dominion was the evil empire of the time, ancient times, and they basically just created the standard social political structure that stands today. They're no longer around, at least in some sort of numbers, and everyone's fighting over land and technology that the Druin had. Chapter 7 starts off with them going to Kellerek's house. And the funny thing is that they've never seen a pool before. So Kellerek has this big pool because he's a super rich dude now. And they're like, why is there a pond with no fish or nothing in it? And they're laughing back and forth. Kellerek comes and is actually really angry that they don't know what a pool is, and some weird things happen. Another thing I found interesting was we see what Gabriel's wife was like, or we see what she is, and she's a drug addict. Now, there is a drug in this called the Scratch, which is basically a poisonous frog slime or something like that, and people scratch themselves to get the slime under the skin, and it causes euphoria. Because they're at dinner, and Gabriel's explaining the situation with Rose, which is her daughter, and she's just sitting there giggling to herself in the corner and just not even there, not talking, and totally tripping balls, as they say. It's kind of really sad. It really is. It's a pretty sad chapter, to be totally honest. You saw a lot of Gabriel being human and being, emotionally drained. He saw his ex-wife, and she's pretty much screwed up from drugs. And here's this Kellerek guy who stole his wife from him, and he's letting it happen. Like, it just, I feel the pain, it really sucks. It sucks. I hope Kellerek gets what's coming to him. So in chapter 8, they finally go and see the sword, which is imbued in this big statue of Kellerek. And Kellerek, I want to imagine, is a guy who, he's kind of rotund. I want to say he's played by Ian McNeice, who played Winston Churchill in Doctor Who. And he also played as the newsreader in Rome, which is a fantastic series. If you haven't seen that, after watching this video, go and watch that series. It's phenomenal. It's like the precursor to Game of Thrones. He just has that rotund, and he thinks he's big and bad, but he's really not. He's just an asshole. Safe to say. So what was I saying? So in chapter 8, they go into this museum of all the stuff that Kellerek has. And he's got the sword and attached to a statue, and he has these 2 golems which he's controlling with this medallion, and they're basically like his bodyguards. And Kellerek makes a deal with Gabe and says, Gabe, if you can get this sword out of the statue, the sword's yours. If not, get the hell out of here. So Gabe is trying really hard, and this is another point where we see Gabe being very human and very humbled, because Clay describes Gabe as this outright, is I'm awesome, I do everything, I want all the women, all the fame. And here we see Gabe really humbled, he's really a human, and you see that he's just a broken man, or is becoming more and more broken as things go on. So Clay sees that Kellerek is controlling the golems with this medallion, and Clay's had enough. He's humiliating his best friend, And, Kellerick is just kind of a douche. So Clay ends up grabbing the medallion and punching Kellerick in the face with it, and then commands the golems to go and hunt down Kellerick. Kellerick runs away. He commands the golems to punch a hole through a wall, and him and Gabe escape. No sword, though, unfortunately, which is very sad. But thus it was. So here's where I don't get why Clay and Gabriel did this. So they're on the run from Kellerick because Kellerick got a bunch of guards, got a bunch of money, so he can easily just hunt these guys down. And they end up giving the golems to some dude in the side of the road. Like, come on, these are how useful can these golems be? Having this medallion that controls them, they have a ton of power, and they're super strong. Keep the fucking golems. I mean, come on. I don't know, whatever. I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree with their decision there, but who am I? All right, so Chapter 9 is pretty cool because we are introduced to a third bandmate of Saga. So Clay and Gabriel, after ditching the golems, which I still think is a bad move, go over to Moog, who's their old bandmate, and he's the old wizard of the band Saga. And he has this wizard's tower in the middle of nowhere. And so it's funny, so Moog has been making ends meet by creating basically the Viagra of this world. And he calls it Magic Moog's Magnificent Phallic Philanthropy. And basically he makes dick pills. So, cool. Now, they go up to the wizard's tower, and there's this talking door knocker who has a lisp, and there's some hilarious dialogue happens. There's some banter. It's cool. And then they're introduced to Moog, and I envision Moog being like David Tennant from Doctor Who, because he's got those kind of crazy movements, and he seems to have people talking in his head, and he's very eccentric, and he's saying these crazy weird things, and I don't know, I think their personalities, at least the way David Tennant has played in the Doctor Who or that evil villain in the Harry Potter series, they both have that kind of same feeling where they're crazy. They're absolutely insane. Now, Moog is a wizard, and wizards are crazy, so that's without saying. The chapter is called Heathen's Touch, because there's a disease in this world where if you go into the Wyld, which is where they're going to be going pretty soon, you have a chance of conflicting with this, or getting inflicted with the Heathen's Touch, which is like stone skin from the Game of Thrones series, or like leprosy, but it infects parts of your body, and the body's part falls off, and sometimes it can infect organs, and you die. Now, Moog has been secretly researching the cure for this disease with pretty much no luck whatsoever. And we find out it's because Moog's husband, Frederick, died of this disease. After the band split up, Moog apparently fell in love with this guy, and he was immediately conflicted with the Heathen's Touch. So they tried to cure him, and Moog couldn't do it, and he died. So he's been studying ever since, trying to cure his disease, and he's very sad, A lot of this book has a lot of comedic value to it, but there's a lot of sadness involved with these people, especially with the bandmates of Saga, because they're kind of over the hill, and they're not in their prime anymore, and they're coming to that realization that they're human and that they're frail. And, especially in Moog's sense, because he is emotionally damaged by the death of his husband, and he hasn't recovered. It's been, they don't say how many years it's been, but it's been a fair number of years since his husband died, and he's still damaged and still hurt, and I feel for him, That's some sad stuff. Now, they haven't mentioned anything about going off into the Wyld yet with Moog. They kind of just are consoling him, because Moog had an experiment of a Trent, a little mini Trent, and the Trent had the Heathen's Touch, and he was trying to cure him, and it didn't work. And so he got really, really sad. Clay, who in an idiot moment brought up Frederick, and then Moog kind of clam up a little bit. Then we find out literally at the last line of the chapter that Moog himself has the Heathen's Touch. And unfortunately, he's also trying to find the cure for himself. So, real sad stuff in that chapter. Some real good writing in that, and Nicholas Eames' part, definitely showing a little more of the human side of it, which is good, because it gives you depth to the character, and it makes you more relate to their emotions and kind of their actions. I still think selling the golems was not a really good idea, but I'm going to get over it. So, all right, guys, so that was the review for chapters 5 through 9. And we'll be reviewing chapters 10 through 14 next Wednesday, which will be March 22nd. so catch me there. So like I had mentioned before, the book Devour is supposed to be very dynamic, so let's talk in the comments below on the YouTube, or follow me on Twitter. I'll post my handle below. That's going to be an even easier way to get a hold of me or to create kind of a cool dynamic discussion here. So let's talk about it. A lot of crazy things happen in these chapters. I'd really like to know what your opinion is on the thieves not stealing the shield, which I think is the dumbest move in the world. And then to even follow that up, Clay and Gabriel selling two extremely powerful golems. Didn't even sell them, they just gave it to this dude who was stuck on the side of the road. I mean, come on, really, really, really? So, yeah, whatever. Going on, let's talk about it. See if I missed something that makes these two actions any more realistic, or anything. I don't know, just stupid people. All right, guys, thank you for watching Classically Trained Nerds Book Devour of Kings of the Wyld. This was episode 2. Episode 3 will be on next week on the 22nd. We're going to be going over chapters 10 through 14. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It does help the channel out greatly. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll post the handles below. Let me know what you thought of this episode and any of the content that we created here today. And let's talk about this book. Everything in this book does beg to be discussed. And as always, my fellow Nerd Knights, embrace the nerd life.